to take the Jeskai Ascendancy path to round number 10 here at Grand Prix Lyon.
Hello and welcome to round 10 of Grand Prix Lyon. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Rich Hagen and Matej Bigzy Zalkai, and we're going to get a chance to see one of the more unique matchups that you're going to get a chance to see in Modern, and kind of, you know, one of the demonstrations of quite how crazy Modern can be. On one side of the table, in the hands of Antonio Pinto, you see him there kicking things off with Black-Red Hollow One. And this is a deck that can have some explosive turn ones. We see a Burning Inquiry here. Both players going to be drawing 3 cards, then discarding 3 cards at random. Street Wraith has already been cycled. That means that Hollow Ones on this turn, after this has finished resolving, will be completely free. Of course, there's a potential they could be discarded in this moment.
Oh, double!
Wow.
That's a good discard to Burning Inquiry. Double Flame Wake Phoenix and Bloodghast. Whew. But I think Antonio mulligan at least once. He has way too few cards in his hands. Let's see if he has some Hollow Ones left over.
The other cool thing, I guess, is there is a Hollow One. I think Frankie Numbers ran the numbers on this Hollow One deck and said that it actually has a pretty good chance of getting at least one Hollow One in play on the first turn. I don't want to start quoting the actual numbers because he will give me what for if I say the wrong ones. But it's like a happy amount of the time that you can get a Hollow One in play.
So it's not a squillion percent?
Not a squillion, somewhere south of that. But Antonio Pinto here also gets to have a look through the cards that got discarded there and gets a feel for potentially what he might be up against early doors before any plays have come from Niklas Kronberger.
I can see Frank off in the corner with a pair of headphones on. If he looks threatening and violent in about 8 seconds from now on the stream delay, you know he's watching the stream.
Just a Birds of Paradise in play on turn 1 for Niklas Kronberger. Innocuous enough start, but with the Cerulean Wisps already in the graveyard, I'm sure that Antonio Pinto, there's a chance that he figures out what's going on here. Bloodghast coming back thanks to that land coming into play. And of course, conveniently enough, Hollow One is the correct size that we are able to get back those copies of Flamewake Phoenix.
This is just such a fast start from the Hollow One deck. It's something that you don't get to see quite often, because not just the turn 1 Hollow One or like a turn 2 Gurmagangla, it's the fact that now Antonio Pinto can bring back 2 of the Phoenix and swing for 8 on turn 2.
Yeah, this is
nuts.
A terrifying start that any deck in Modern would be quite right to feel concerned about. Obviously, it doesn't work out this way every time, but when it does, it works. Maybe not every time, like hopefully every time.
Yeah, it's just quite good here, and basically what it forces Niklas Kronberger to try to go off maybe sooner, and he might not even be able to. I think I saw a Sylvan Caryatid in his hand, but he might just start digging for some spells. The good thing for him is that he's not going to be dead on the following turn, unless Antonio finds like another Flamewake Phoenix or something similar.
Someone in chat calling themselves Frank Carsten says in about 40% of the games you will have cast Hollow One by turn 1 or 2.
I'm going to say that's a happy amount, so I'm going to say that I'm bang on, and Frankie Numbers and I are working on the exact same hymn sheet.
Excellent.
Glittering Wish here from Niklas Kronberger, so he gets to search his sideboard for any gold card, any multicolored card, and put it into his hand.
Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the Jeskai Ascendancy. And so he's good. It looks like Niklas Kronberger will try to go off next turn. The thing with this deck is that if it only has one mana creature to go along with the Jeskai Ascendancy, it's quite difficult to win. But the moment you find a Fate Stitcher and are able to mill it, because remember, Jeskai Ascendancy also says draw a card, discard a card. Not just untap your creatures and grow them by +1/+1. That's the moment where the deck really starts popping off, because suddenly it's able to generate extra mana and go through the motions.
Yeah, that Unearth ability gives you a hasty mana creature in effect, because it's a creature that can untap a land by tapping itself. And that's the point there where, yes, you get ahead and everything works out just fine. So attacks for 2, 4, 6, and 10 there. Niklas Kronberger dropping to 2. All pressure on him to win the game here, but Does Antonio Pinto have, I don't know, a lightning bolt to close things out? We'll find out in just one moment. Even something like a Burning Inquiry here could be quite painful, because if it makes him discard that Jeskai Ascendancy he's just fetched up, he may just simply not even have a hope of going off here.
Yeah, but I assume he would have played it before combat if he had it, just because it would have maybe helped him find another Bloodcast or something similar. Okay, no, just one hardcast one. And they didn't have haste before combat.
Okay, so there is a Fate Stitcher in hand. There is a Jeskai Ascendancy. Is there a land such that he can play after a Jeskai Ascendancy any one spell? And I don't think I see one.
No, that is 7 spells.
It's a real shame, because if he had one land here with a Fate Stitcher alongside that Birds of Paradise, and he's got at least a spell or two in there, he actually would have had a so-so chance of getting there with this hand, which is kind of crazy when you think about it in many respects. But I think that the incredibly aggressive and fast start of Antonio Pinto might have been just enough here to win before the combo deck could piece things together.
Oh, sad.
If Niklas Kronberger was on the play, I think he might have been able to win himself, because he did have the Birds of Paradise. He just never had time to also deploy the Sylvan Caryatid that he drew.
Yeah, really, really tough start there for Niklas Kronberger in this game 1 here in round 10 of Grand Prix Lyon. But this is the reason we play best of 3. These guys are going to go to their sideboards. It's worth noting, of course, that because Niklas Kronberger is running a Glittering Wish package, he's got the ability to fetch cards from his sideboard in game 1. In some respects, we might not see him doing very much sideboarding at all, because the way that he's put together those 15 cards that are not in his main deck is a little bit different to the way that you or I might choose to do so for almost any other deck in the format.
Yeah, that's true. I'm looking at the sideboards now. One of the problems for the Jeskai Ascendancy deck, because it relies on Glittering Wish, and a lot of you who might not have played 15 years ago when the first set of wishes came out, things like Living Wish, Burning Wish, Cunning Wish, of course. I'm sure that's Rich's favorite wish.
Shockingly enough.
Yeah.
I actually played a lot of Burning Wish, to be fair.
Really? Okay. And so basically what that means that if you put these cards in your sideboard, alongside with the Glittering Wishes in your main deck, your sideboard becomes that much smaller, because you're using your sideboard slot to basically grab cards for main deck use, and you don't have that many options when you're sideboarding.
So put a number on that, Matej. Are we talking about essentially a 12-card sideboard with 3 sort of wish targets, or are we more in the realm of 7, 8, or is it absolutely the other way around?
It's absolutely the other way.
Oh, okay.
It's actually Niklas Kronberger is running 4 Leyline of Sanctity, and all his other cards are multicolored.
Right.
But to be fair, he could easily sideboard in, because he has some which are duplicates. So for example, he has 2 Fiery Justice, so he could bring one into the main deck, leave one in his sideboard for a Glittering Wish, and combine it in this regard. But he has some spicy ones. I mean, cards that I haven't seen in ages. I'm going to throw some at you. Mystic Enforcer.
Ooh, lovely. Originally from Odyssey.
Yep.
But reprinted in Time Spiral. Threshold creature that starts off as a 3/3 protection from black with Threshold, becomes a 6/6 with flying and any other abilities? I can't remember.
Protection from black, I think.
Yeah, protection from black as standard. There we go.
Yeah.
Human Nomad Mystic. I nearly got the whole lot.
Wow, that's...
Well done, Tim. Well done.
Yeah,
all right.
I played that one. That one was a good one.
I'll have another test for you then. Scarscale Ritual.
Scarsdale Ritual, that's a hybrid card, blue and black. And you get to put -1/-1 counters on one of your creatures, I think it is, and draw additional cards, I believe. I think it's 2 cards that you draw on that one.
Yes.
Okay.
I think
Let's
you got
see how close I was.
Let's get that up on screen. Here we go.
I'm genuinely not cheating on this, by the way, as tempting as it would be to do so.
All right. And Rich, I got another one for you to pull up.
Okay.
Flesh/blood.
Oh, flesh and blood.
Flesh and blood.
Oh, this one is red and black, but that's pretty easy just based on the title. No, it's
not.
No, it'll be gold and gold, won't it? Because it's Glittering Wish. So that'll be one of the ones from Return to Ravnica block. Probably what? The second or no, there must be the third set. It must be.
What does it do,
Dragon's
Tim?
Maze.
What does it do?
I can't remember.
It is Dragon's Maze, and I'd like to thank you, Matej, for breaking our graphics machine, because we can't put those up in that space.
Sorry about that. No, there are some really cool cards in Niklas Kronberger's sideboard, and I really would love to see them put to good use with the Glittering Wish as we're entering game 2.
We should actually just say what they do.
Okay,
Flesh, sorcery, exile target creature card from a graveyard, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is the power of the card you exiled. Blood, sorcery, red-green. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. And now, here's game 2.
Now, the reason for the blood half of Flesh Blood, by the way, just while we're covering it off, seeing as we've so handily pointed it out, is actually it's blood that's the important bit, which is sometimes you'll have situations where, yes, you've got some really big creatures, but your opponent has sufficient blockers that you can't get rid of them all. This gives you a way of dealing direct damage to your opponent. Even if they've got loads of blockers, you can still kill them if you've made your creatures very large with Jeskai Ascendancy.
Yeah, another reason for it being the popularity of Lantern Control, of course. You can't attack at all if you have something like an Staring Bridge in play with your humongous creatures. So sometimes you just want to fetch it out. And the good thing with the Jeskai Ascendancy combo deck is the fact that they can still, when they're going off, they're going to go through their whole deck. So they're going to find this particular card if they want to. So it's always a case of just if the Ascendancy deck is going, it's going to be very hard for the deck not to be able to kill its opponent.
So Grim Lavamancer, the early play from Antonio Pinto, that one a clear and present danger to all of the mana creatures in Niklas Kronberger's deck, such as the Birds of Paradise already in play, and it will make his going off quite a bit trickier, because if you can't keep your mana creatures in play, everything else kind of falls apart. You do need those creatures that are generating mana, because those are the things that let you churn through your deck. They're the ones that keep untapping and then tapping for more mana once you have a Jeskai Ascendancy on board.
We like to keep people in chat happy. Here it comes. I've no idea why that's so important to you.
I'm the one person that can't see the chat right now, so I'm just saying, yeah, white bordered 8th edition forest, no idea.
And the best kind of forest.
Birds of Paradise there. That's the best kind of Birds of Paradise, or one of the best, certainly. That was one of the promo versions, buy a box promo, I believe. And here we have a sleight of hand from Niklas Kronberger. So he gets to look at the top 2 cards of his deck, put one in his hand and the other on the bottom of his deck.
Yeah. So someone in chat, Panda Squared, does Niklas play Sylvan Chariot? He does, and if he wants to win this game, he needs some of those Chariot hits drawn right away, and that's why he's digging with those Serum Visions, Slate of Hands, and more Serum Visions.
And potentially there are some cool things that you can do with Fate Stitcher, even in the face of a Grim Lavamancer, to be able to get enough creatures in play that function as mana creatures. But this is definitely one of the cards in Grim Lavamancer that can make life a little bit trickier. It's not going to take too much for Antonio Pinto to find additional cards heading to his graveyard. Essentially, that's everything in his deck is looking to achieve roughly that.
Yeah. He was probably looking for for a fetch down here, but Burning Inquiry will work just as well. And this card is so underrated in how it messes up with your opponent's hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the exciting bit for me. There are a few different cards that let you draw and discard. Goblin Law, Faithless Looting, of course. This is the one that also, on top of that, just sometimes randomly messes with your opponent's plans. Those discards not too exciting. Gurmag Angler, Goblin Law, and Collective Brutality. But extra cards in the graveyard are kind of enough for Antonio Pinto to not be too unhappy here, because his Grim Lavamancer now has plenty of fuel for that fire. Yeah, Fate Stitcher in the graveyard, though, that could be important on the other side of things.
Yeah, indeed. I think Antonio Pinto is not going to try to develop his board further anyway. He's just going to shoot down the Birds of Paradise as soon as he can. So he does. And now the shields are a bit down, but I don't think Niklas Kronberger can win on his turn just yet.
No, this turn, I think the best that he could potentially achieve is just get a Jeskai Ascendancy in play, set yourself up to potentially do cool things in a subsequent turn. Antonio Pinto there, he gets a Hollow One into play for free off the having discarded so many cards to his previous spells on the last turn.
For free, my friends. For free. That is just disgusting.
Best price in Magic. And here we see Kronberger. He's taken some damage from Mana Confluence. He's lost a few counters from Gemstone Mine, but he has Jeskai Ascendancy in play. So he is threatening to do some cool things on the following turn. It's just a matter of whether or not he can string together sufficient mana creatures to be able to do things, even with a Grim Lavamancer active.
Right. It's going to be tough still, because he doesn't have a good blue source of mana. When you're using Jeskai Ascendancy with Face Stitcher, when you're untapping land, you ideally want something different than a Mana Confluence or a Gemstone Mine that falls apart very quickly. So that could be an issue, whereas I don't think the Grim Lavamancer is that big of an issue against the Fate Stitcher once the Jeskai Ascendancy is already in play, because Niklas could play an instant in response to the activation of the Grim Lavamancer and pump up his Fate Stitcher to at least a 2-3 to keep the train rolling. But Antonio leaving up one red mana could also signal a lightning bolt, so it's definitely going to be tricky. On the other side, Niklas Kronberger, he's not under pressure to win right now.
Yeah, the moment that he does unearth that Fate Stitcher, he's kind of setting himself up for having to get a fair amount going in that one turn. Taps his Mana Confluence, and it looks like he's going for it.
Okay, he's confident.
Yeah, Admiral No Beard says, active Ascendancy, and here we go.
All right.
Oh, he has some nice tokens, it looks like.
Yeah, I think that this is his way of showing triggers that are on the stack, so that if stacks get complicated, which, spoiler alert, they could very easily, it's going to remain clear both for him and everyone else. And this is a nice addition. Abundant Growth. So he's
I love this. We should hire Niklas to just sit in the feature match area and just pull up his cards and triggers. I think that's fantastic.
So in response to Grim Lavamancer, this Gemstone Mine getting activated with an instant speed opt.
Yup. Exactly as I described, he just wants to grow his Fate Stitcher out of range.
I'm a big fan of having these visual representations of all of those triggers. It helps him keep things clean for himself. It's very, very difficult for things to be unclear to either you, the audience, or Antonio Pinto on the other side of the table. And this is an intricate deck to play. You don't want there to be too many confusing elements for either player, because ultimately it means that you can just go through the motions a little bit more cleanly and make sure that when you're going off, you don't mess anything up.
I won't be overreacting this one, but this might be one of the best things I've ever seen in a Magic game. Someone coming with pre-prepared cards with pictures and writing on triggers and displaying them clearly. I'm a huge fan of Niklas's right away.
It's a whole new level of communication that is so important on a second day of a GP.
Yeah. And it's the sort of thing that we have seen Storm players in the past that have a counter for their Storm, a counter for their red mana, a counter for their blue mana, and this is kind of the same sort of thing. It's just that this Jeskai Ascendancy deck, it's stacking up 2 different triggers for every spell that's being cast, and that does get kind of messy. So this Abundant Growth, it's still on the stack, and it might sit on the stack for a while as more other cards are being played here.
Yes, now there were some nice untaps with Fate Stitchers. Niklas has some floating mana available to him as well. He's signaling that quite clearly, and now I think he shouldn't have any trouble going off and killing his opponent. The way it's going to work here now is quite easy, that every time he casts a 1 mana spell, he's going to draw a card, discard a card, dig further, maybe find another Fate Stitcher or something similar, or just even find some more spells. And with the Abundant Growth on the Mana Confluence, he's not taking any damage, so he always can get more mana to keep it going. That's not a very good sleight of hand. Yeah, but Abundant Growth is every time he draws a 1 mana spell, it's fine, because all of those spells draw cards as well, and Jeskai Ascendancy keeps him going too, so he should be fine. And this game is going to end up when the Fate Stitcher is going to grow up to at least 17 power. He's going to tap the Flameblade Adept on the other side of the board, play 1 more spell, untap the Fate Stitcher, and attack for lethal. So he's just going through the motions here.
Yeah, I mean, easy mode comes when he finds the second Fate Stitcher, because then he's generating mana and it becomes much, much harder for there to be any kind of fizzling going on. Obviously, every time he's playing a spell to draw a card, he's also looting, so he's got a good chance of being able to continue things. But in principle, if he had 4 lands in a row on top of his deck, he could run out of steam here.
Yeah, it is highly unlikely, but definitely possible. Now, I think he's indicating that the die represents the amount of extra power that the Fate Stitcher is pumped by, and now Cerulean Wisp is also a nice way to generate actually an extra mana, because you target the Fate Stitcher, it untaps with the Jeskai Ascendancy, so you can untap land again, but then in response to the Wisp still, with an untapped Fate Stitcher you can untap you can tap a land and untap it with the wisps, and you get an extra mana out of this and draw a card on the way.
Now that island that's in play, it's not actually an island in play. That's a visual representation of 1 blue mana floating. Niklas Kronberger continuing his trend of visually representing everything that's going on in a relatively complicated combo deck, which I think I can speak for myself, my other commentators, and probably quite a fair amount of the chat too when I say we appreciate that move, Niklas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think he might play a second Ascendancy here. Oh no, just a Glittering Wish. Costs him a bit more mana here, but he still gets those triggers, and he can find a different Ascendancy. Yeah, Antonio Pinto doesn't look amused here. Yeah, he's just getting the combo explained to him.
He's looking for his one visual representation of I pass all of my opportunities to respond here. I mean, the fact that he's fully tapped out in some respects, kind of a blessing. Scarsdale Ritual is the card fetched with that Glittering Wish, and this is a nice one because it offers him the opportunity to draw a few additional cards, and putting a -1/-1 counter on that Fate Stitcher at this point, not a big deal, because while it's naturally a 1/1, it's got +6/+6 so far this turn.
Yeah, it's also an indication to me that Niklas has run low on spells, because he probably wants to get the Scarscale Ritual just because it gives him an extra trigger with the Ascendancy through the Glittering Wish. Also itself, but also the drawing of the 2 extra cards might be relevant here.
Yeah, had he had abundant mana at this point, then he may have just gone for Jeskai Ascendancy. He's not quite in that situation yet, really does need to find another Fate Stitcher if he's going to make that happen for himself. And this way he gets well up on cards and hopefully is able to keep this combo going.
Yeah, so drew some extra cards, and here comes the Sleight of Hand. I like that. Remember the way he's lining up the triggers, he always lets the Lewd resolve first, meaning the
draw and discard
part, and then he can still respond to that by tapping his Fate Stitcher to untap a land, and then letting the untap and +1/+1 to resolve and get his Fate Stitcher untapped.
Now, for players that are new to Modern, on the face of things, yes, this is a very complicated deck. There's no denying that. But one of the cool things about it is it's kind of a puzzle in and of itself, meaning that if you were looking for a deck to play in Modern, I wouldn't necessarily shy away from this one quite as much as it first appears, because as long as you can do the things that this deck does crisply and cleanly and get a feel for when you can and can't go off, this is the sort of thing that you can practice for yourself, and you don't necessarily always need an opponent. In some respects, had Niklas Kronberger simply said, okay, I'm going to have a game where I want to see whether or not I can go off on turn 4, it wouldn't have been dramatically different to the situation he found himself here against Antonio Pinto, except for the fact that he wouldn't naturally have had a Fate Stitcher in the graveyards.
Yep. So I think the summary there was Jeskai Ascendancy, a great deck for people with no friends. I think that's what you just said. I'm not sure.
Oh,
that seemed an approximation.
Alternatively, just a great deck.
Fair. This is awesome.
Yes.
Manamorphose.
So Manamorphose is a key card because it's basically free, but with the Fate Stitcher it also generates extra mana, also fixes the mana for casting some cards, and more important, Niklas Kronberger found the second Fate Stitcher, and now I think he's just a couple of spells away from finishing the game off.
Yeah, he has a Jeskai Ascendancy in hand, and if I'm Antonio Pinto here, yes, there's 27 minutes left on the clock, so there's not a strong requirement for him to worry about the clock just yet. At some point, I think it's worth it considering moving on to the next game. And to me, once you've got 2 Fate Stitchers, 2 Jeskai Ascendancy in play, so you're going to be looting twice for every instance that you're casting another spell. That's the point where I think, you know what, maybe I can afford to let this one go.
Yeah, so now I think he's demonstrated that he will have find a way to win the game, because the Banishing Knack is the card that he's playing here. So it's going to give one of his Fate Stitchers the ability to tap and return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And what that means, together with the Abundant Growth, that he can always just return the Abundant Growth, first generate some mana, return the Abundant Growth, play it, and untap both Fate Stitchers. And not saying going infinite, but it's just going to mean that there will be no way for Antonio to win the game, because both Fate Stitchers is just going to be monumentally large. And he also, yeah, look at that. Niklas also hasn't played a land just yet, so he's just trying to say that this is how it's going to work. And so, yeah, I'm going to target the Abundant Growth. Yeah, and I think he has seen enough, so, yeah. Cool deck.
Cool deck, and I think that the thing that I appreciated most there was the crispness and cleanness and clarity with which Niklas Kronberger assembled and went through his combo. There was never any confusion as to literally what was on the stack at any given point, how much mana was in any mana pool, how big each of those creatures were. Just a very clean execution of what is potentially quite a complicated combo.
Yeah, and Antonio Pinto sitting there going, yes, good. I had so much fun. That last 10 minutes of my life really validated my life choices. Good.
To be fair, Rich, I have been on both sides. The Pro Tour Berlin that you mentioned quite often.
Sure.
If you guys haven't seen the coverage of that, it's not great because it's especially the Elf Mirror matches. It's basically both players trying to do the same thing that Niklas Kronberger is trying to do here, and sometimes fizzling on doing that.
Also, to be fair, Antonio Pinto, while all this is happening, is probably thinking quite seriously in his head, yeah, let's just see what you do when I've got 2 hollow ones in play on turn 1, my friend. How about that then?
Yeah, his combo a little bit less process heavy, shall we say.
Yeah. I didn't bring any tokens with me. I brought hollow ones with me, and they're in play. Yours.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I would say that Antonio Pinto's combo, less consistent, more explosive.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think Niklas Kronberger sits with explosive as the definition in many ways.
On any one turn, a lot of things happen.
Yes, it's just he maybe takes 10-15 minutes for that one turn to occur, which is not explosive.
No.
It's more engineered, one could say.
And sometimes with engineered explosives.
Really? Is that around in that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, we're gearing up for game number 3. You're watching Good Morning Magic with me, Rich Hagen, him, Tim Willoughby, and him, Matej Big Z Zappelkai. We have already shown you some nuts decks. Nuts, I tell you. And that's not hype. Anyone in chat who was there for round 9 will tell you it was basically the weirdest, craziest, off-the-wall deck we've seen on camera for many a long year. And then not only did it appear on camera, it won in ways that it shouldn't be able to win basically ever. It was astonishing. Round 9 is one for the ages for sure, but we are here in round 10, and of course we're heading towards MTG Red Zone through the rest of the day. 11 through 15 we'll give you Riley Knight will be along with Simon Gertzen to open the coverage of that show for you. And eventually we'll get to Sunday Night Magic, where amongst other things we will show you the sideboard of the Soulflayer Zatalpa deck that we saw in round 9.
These players just finishing their shuffling up and sideboarding as they do go to game 3. It will be Antonio Pinto on the play in the decider, and that potentially gigantic. His is the deck that can just go firing out the gates with some big creatures on turn 1 or 2, and in each of these games, I mean, even in that game that Niklas Kronberger won, had he been on the draw rather than the play, he may have found himself in really hot water, and that might be the reason that we see a little smile here on Antonio Pinto's face as we do go to this deciding game. There's definitely both players in this match have the potential to close things out in decisive fashion as we hit the rubber game here in round 10.
And still to come, we have some green-white Hatebears action. There have been some... Ugo Scaramelli is the player who we're going to feature. He's had some fun stories from yesterday, killing Tron on turn 3 twice by double Ghost Quartering with the help of Knight of the Reliquary with Avon Mind Sensor in play.
Ugh.
Also got someone with Sigarda and Worship.
Worship, a very underplayed card, I think, in Modern. It's definitely very powerful, especially with a hexproof creature like Sigarda. There are some decks that simply have to scoop it up against that sort of thing. We may get a chance to see exactly that combo soon enough, but before we get there, we have one more game between Jeskai Ascendancy and Hollow One. Antonio Pinto on the play here with the Black-Red Hollow One deck. Let's see whether or not his starting 7 makes the cut.
Hope so.
Goblin Law, where are those lands? There's a Blood Moon, that's very good, but it's not very good when you have literally no lands in your opener, so he's going to be going to 6. Looks like Kronberger happy enough with his 7. Blood Moon, a very interesting card that it's kind of cool against this deck, but this is a deck full of mana creatures and abundant growth, meaning that it will either do everything if he can somehow strand Niklas Kronberger without an appropriate mana creature in play, or it may do essentially nothing, as well, he kind of wants red mana to help him cast the Ascendancy anyway, and so he just needs to find 2 mana creatures, and if he's got 2 mana creatures and an Ascendancy, then he's pretty much winning the game.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be good, it might be very good, it might also be very bad. I don't think it's going to be average.
Come on, Antonio, keep 6, please. Have a good hand. Want a good game.
Well, there's a Blood Moon again. He's
2
got lands, he's got interaction. Yeah, I kind of like this one. He's got a Lightning Bolt and a Grim Lavamancer, plus the Blood Moon, which we've established is either good or bad.
Yeah,
one of the two, but definitely not both.
Yeah, depends on the number of Sylvan Caryatids in Niklas' hands.
It may well combine very nicely with Grim Lavamancer and a Lightning Bolt to deal with the first few mana creatures. Grim Lavamancer, originally from Torment. Very, very potent creature indeed.
And one of my favorites. And I'm happy it started to be played again, not just in this deck, but also in the burn decks. It was in and out of favor all the time, but I think it has found its spot in Modern again. Yeah,
with the rise of things like the Humans deck that has lots of creatures that do dice Grim Lavamancer, it's proven its worth. Noble Hierarch getting cast here into the face of that Grim Lavamancer. I guess that depending on Kronberger's draw, it may just be that he can keep running out mana creatures and overpower whatever removal it is that Antonio Pinto is working with here. This turn, I think we're going to see a Collective Brutality discarding Lightning Bolt.
Interesting.
He really wants to take a look at that hand of Niklas Kronberger's and potentially snipe a key spell from there before it gets a chance to get cast.
Yeah, he also wants to make sure he has 2 cards in his graveyard in case that Niklas Kronberger would play another Birds of Paradise next turn, because he might be worried that with those Goblin Lores, if he might not be able to have another land to shoot another bird with the Grim Lavamancer, but he finds an Enslaved hand and also another Birds of Paradise, Fiery Justice, and double Glittering Wish. That's not a great hand from Niklas here.
So Pinto was sorting those cards off camera. So thanks, Niklas Kronberger, for just leaving them face up for us. Appreciate that.
Once again,
he's a bro.
Yeah, he's all about helping out coverage.
We like him a lot.
Yeah, hire that man.
So it's going to be an interesting one here. So Sylvan Caryatid the pickup.
What a draw from Niklas Kronberger. Right off the top, the Caryatid that I don't think Antonio Pinto has any ways to interact with. And
it's possible that there could be a Liliana has come out of the sideboard.
Potentially.
I know that some lists have looked at having that in there for Black Red Hollow 1. Here is the Blood Moon. So, weirdly, Blood Moon, it's kind of okay, because it does mean that Niklas Kronberger is going to struggle to cast a Jeskai Ascendancy this turn, which previously he would have been able to do. But then Sylvan Caryatid does help out Niklas' mana quite a bit. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Antonio Pinto now has no access to black mana.
Yes.
So that may have been another factor in his casting Collective Brutality last turn. If you suspected that he was going to cast Blood Moon, he couldn't afford to do things any other way.
Yeah, the problem for Kronberger in this situation is that I think Blood Moon is now on the good side of things rather than the other one, because with the carrier, look at that, Niklas has to use the Cerulean Wisp to keep digging, because the cards in Niklas' hand are basically stranded. He has Glittering Wish that doesn't really do anything because he only has 1 colored mana, well, outside of red, of course. The one good card that Niklas can definitely draw is Manamorphose, because he can turn that red mana into any colored mana, and that's going to be potentially the key to winning the game. Antonio Pinto does have the Grim Lavamancer up, so even if Niklas plays another Birds of Paradise through that Sylvan Caryatid, that's going to get shooted down immediately. As Chad likes to say, bolt the bird, always.
Oh, you've got to. But it looks like if there's a creature getting removed from this battlefield, it may in fact be Grim Lavamancer, because off that sleight of hand, Engineered Explosives coming down. 1 counter on it thanks to Sunburst, and not even taking any damage from that mana confluence there, because it is currently a mountain.
Yeah, that's a sweet play.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game, because it works out that Blood Moon, it does make life a little fiddly for Antonio Pinto to cast some of his spells, And right now, Niklas Kronberger, he can cast his spells to some extent, and he's the one that's got more card drawing to find ways out of the potential hole that he finds himself in here.
So he's going to blow up the Grim Lavamancer, and that's going to enable Niklas to finally deploy that Birds of Paradise from his hand that has been stranded there. And if that survives, if there's no Lightning Bolt in Pinto's hand, then that's going to mean that Niklas will be able to start playing his Glittering Wishes and keep rolling.
I guess that the other thing that Blood Moon does is it means that specifically Fate Stitcher gets a little bit worse when it comes to comboing off, because then you need an abundant growth on the land that Fate Stitcher's untapping before it's likely to produce anything other than red mana in this matchup. I don't think there's too many basics in the Jeskai Ascendancy list here. Just a straight up cast Fate Stitcher coming down for Niklas Kronberger.
He can untap his own Caryatid.
This is true. Yeah, that'll work.
There's Lightning Bolt.
I guess if you're going to cast one mana creature, Fate Stitcher's a nice one because of exactly what we see here, that Lightning Bolt can kill it, but it can still come back at an appropriate moment. A cycled Street Wraith, meaning that Hollow One only costs 3.
Yeah, I was saying before that I thought Blood Moon was actually good in this spot compared to being bad in that spot. It was mainly to slow down Niklas, but Antonio didn't have any pressure, and if you're only disrupting your opponent temporarily without killing him, then this sort of thing happens where Niklas finally got to develop his board further, got rid of the Grim Lavamancer, has the Birds of Paradise, and maybe now he will be able to actually start comboing off.
Now, as one mana was tapped there, I'm sure that Niklas Kronberger was thinking, just please no bolt. No bolts, please. And Flameblade Adept, while it has the potential to attack for a lot of damage, it's certainly not nearly as scary as more removal for his mana creatures here. Because we could see a Jeskai Ascendancy this turn quite easily, or a Glittering Wish to set up so that next turn everything's going on. Yeah,
fortunately Jeskai Ascendancy has a red mana in its mana cost, so that Blood Moon won't be that disruptive in this regard.
Now, of course, can't cast the Jeskai Ascendancy this turn because of the fact that having to Glittering Wish for it, he's now just got 3 mountains with which to cast it. It would require a prodigious amount of cards discarded by Antonio Pinto for Flameblade Adept to represent enough this next turn.
Yeah, there was one other way that Niklas could actually get out of this Blood Moon situation. He still has those Retraction Helices and Banishing Knacks, so those can help bounce the Blood Moon temporarily. But now Antonio Pinto with some pressure, potentially with even something like a 2-turn clock. No, it doesn't look that way. It's Kronberger down to 9 here, and he might as well try to combo off on his turn.
Yeah, I think that if I'm Kronberger, there's a strong temptation to try and go off here.
We'll see if he manages to.
I mean, the slightly weird situation is and I guess that if he unearths Fate Stitcher before casting Jeskai Ascendancy, because he's currently now got red available to him.
Ooh, yeah, now he has to pass the turn. So if Niklas Kronberger has the inquiry into Goblin Lore.
Pinto, right? Yeah.
Pinto, Pinto. Correct. Sorry.
Well, there's the Burning Inquiry. So 3 cards discarded. So now we're looking at 8 damage coming through. Yeah.
So now Pinto needs either Street Wraith, Fatal's Looting, Goblin Lore that need to stick in his hand for him to win, because that Flameblade Adept is now will be 4 power after these 3 cards get discarded. What is left? Okay, Goblin Lore, one of the Goblin Lores got discarded.
No Flamewake Phoenix.
And Collective Brutality was also quite important there.
Though no black mana right now. Is there any way of discarding one more card? Because if there is, Antonio Pinto will escape this bizarre matchup that we find ourselves in, with each of these players racing toward victory.
No, he doesn't find anything. And Kronberger is down to 1.
Just plays a land. All right, this is the turn. Jeskai Ascendancy in play, 2 creatures, another Jeskai Ascendancy in hand.
Fate Stitcher in the graveyard.
There are a lot of things working for Niklas Kronberger here. He knows that there's not a lightning bolt in his opponent's hand to disrupt his mana creatures, because if there were, he would already be packing up his cards and advancing to the next round at 7-3. So the pressure is on, but he has the tools that he needs to potentially close this game out.
Right, and he's going to go for the big double Ascendancy play, meaning that he won't even need that many spells to finish off the game. Because remember, now with double Ascendancy, it's just going to mean that much extra mana and that much more pumping. So the Birds of Paradise will only need like 7 spells.
Yeah, the storm count that you need to build up here, not especially large. Remembering, of course, Sylvan Caryatid, that one can't attack, has Defender. Birds of Paradise looking to deal 16 points of damage here on this turn, and that seems eminently achievable from this. Those 4 basic lands, they're just to help Niklas demonstrate how much mana of varying colours he has lying around in his mana pool here.
Yeah, but I think the moment when Niklas Kronberg takes out forest, plains, island, mountain to indicate the number of colours that he's going to need, you know you're in rough shape.
Yes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my props for this evening.
You know all about that.
Yeah, I'm very sad they're not 8th edition white bordered though, because I know how badly chat would like that to happen.
There's actually something to be said for white bordered lands in Modern. It makes them very, very easy to find when you're using your fetch lands. If you've got just a couple of basics, those white borders can make it very easy to find. But I've seen a lot of players switching them up for unstable basics that are also very easy to find in an otherwise busy deck.
They are very distinctive.
For those of you just joining us, the small cards that you see on the left side next to the Serum Visions, those are trigger cards that Niklas made for himself, just to be able to clearly indicate how he is resolving the triggers from the Jeskai Ascendancy that you have in your right. Because every time Niklas plays a non-creature spell, there's 2 separate instances from the Jeskai Ascendancy being put on the stack, and he just wants to make sure that it's clear as day about what is happening here. Look, he found another Fate Stitcher, so he might even need just 3 or 4 spells to finish off the game here.
Yeah, at the moment, each spell that's being cast is generating 4 triggers, 2 off each Jeskai Ascendancy. So lots of untaps, lots of loots, or draw and discards, if you will. And with that being the case, it's very, very easy that each 1 mana spell is netting him mana effectively. It's netting him cards, it's making his creatures bigger, and with Antonio Pinto tapped out of creatures to block, he's not going to need very many spells at all to create a lethal attack here. Generates still more mana, couldn't hurt.
Yeah, this is over. I mean, sometimes there's a thing to be said about not conceding when your opponent is going off, but in a situation with double Ascendancy and 4 mana creatures, it's almost impossible, especially because Antonio saw that Niklas Kronberger still had something like a Glittering Wish left in his hand that can just grab him so many more cards. And look, even Engineer Explosive that he's actually running main deck, but it's just a nice 0 mana card that he can play and get some triggers off.
Yeah, a couple of copies of that one in the main deck can deal with some key threats at various moments, but can also represent a free spell, generating more draws, more discards, more creature pump, more creature untaps, more mana, more wins.
I love Jeskai Ascendancy. It's one of my favorite cards.
It feels like it does an awful lot for what you're paying for it. It's a little pushed, but ultimately the main thing is that it lets you have these turns that they can feel a bit like durdling. You're doing lots of things, but not necessarily winning the game for a while. But at some point, it's kind of got all of the pieces that it needs to just win the game in one enchantment, which is kind of cool.
But arguably, the nicest thing about it is that it hasn't dominated the format for months at a time, and it's just sat there and you can win with it. And Pinto goes, no explosive start for me in game 3, and Niklas Kronberger says, yep. There we go, 2-1 to Niklas Kronberger. He's still live for the tournament. He's up to 8-2. His opponent Antonio Pinto falls to 7-3. No way 3 losses make it in, because we had over 2,000 players yesterday.
Wow. Big tournament.
It's utterly enormous tournament there. It will be break time in just a moment because we're towards the back end of here, but we've got plenty more magic to show you. When we come back, Ugo Scaramelli is going to be our featured player. Matej, no deck list to show full at the moment, but just give us a sense of what's coming. What is green-white Hatebears?
Well, Hatebears is usually a nomenclature that is being used to talk about small white creatures that have small disruptive effects, something like Thalia, Lyon Arbiter, things that just make your opponent's life miserable. And usually you find different ways to go about. You can play mono-white, blue-white, green-white, and green-white is a nice combination of cards that can just give you more and more options about what you want to do.
Okay, so that's coming up after the break, but Niklas Kronberger, it turns out, in addition to being able to explain what all his triggers do in visual form, also speaks some English, which means that we're going to be able to have a word with him in just a moment. So we'll do that before we take our break. They're just sorting him out in the feature match area. He is down there. So let's head down and meet our winner from round number 10. Niklas, welcome to the show. It's Rich Hagen here alongside Tim Willoughby and Matej. Congratulations, still a chance of winning this tournament.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you very much.
So tell us about your deck. Why did you choose Jeskai Ascendancy?
Well, I wanted to play like a few years ago and tournaments ago, and I always decided against it, you know? Like a day before, I thought, well, it's probably not good enough. I just play another deck. But that time, I decided, well, I'll just go for it.
Now, it looks like you were fairly well prepared for playing this deck in the tournament. There's quite a lot of foils in this deck. It looks like you've been working on it for a while. Also, you have got those pre-prepared trigger cards. They look like they must have made life so much easier for making sure that you don't miss anything, but also things are clear to your opponents throughout the event.
Yeah, definitely. A big thanks to my friend Toby, who made the triggers for me and also lent me a lot of the cards. Triggers are perfect. He just forgot to put the word May on it for looting triggers, so I had to add it, but that's basically it, yeah.
Niklas, I don't think in my casting career I've ever grown to like a player as much as you after seeing you play out those triggers, because it was so nice, not just for us, but for the viewers as well. The chat immediately understood what was happening, so kudos to you for doing that. And I was just curious, do you think this deck is well positioned in the metagame?
Not at all. Not at all. Like, the burn matchup is tough, like all Death Shadow matchups are tough. Well, I made it a bit better by having like the growth of the burn bulldoze, but still it's horrible. Then like all those, like basically all those Chunt, Thoughtseize, Inquisition decks, Liliana decks, they're tough, so I don't think it's well positioned, but I love it.
Oh well, 8 more wins and you'll be the Grand Prix champion, so
yeah,
that's easy enough. Niklas, thank you so much. You've given us a fantastic start to the morning.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you very soon. Take care. So that was Niklas Kronberger there, and we are going to head off. Yeah, hello in the background. Yes, you're on camera. Well done. Good. Never fails, does it? So the ads are ready, so are we. We're going to lie down in a darkened room for a couple of minutes. When we come back, it'll be time for some green-white Hatebears. Don't go anywhere.